Hey there, everybody. How you doing? Ian here. It's Monday, February 2nd. We're in week 4. So instead of like an introductory email, I thought I'd just shoot you a quick video to summarize what we're doing this week. Last week we were taking a look at the digital enclosure and the public sphere and the way in which digital um, how we socialize digitally can be problematic, um, and also how the internet hasn't delivered on the promises that it made in its early days, especially with the internet con. So I hope you enjoyed those two texts. They were designed to sort of resonate with each other, just like this week's texts are. So this week we're taking a look at the topic of algorithmic governance and hegemony. And so to do that, we're looking at two different texts. One is Discriminating Data, and it is by, I forget the author's name. Let's take a look here. uh, Wendy Hui Hyung Chun. Hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. But this text is really looking at the way in which, again, in some ways, how digital technologies haven't delivered on their promises and actually do work to damage the social fabric of our communities. Um, and so there's a few specific arguments that she uses to um, make that point. Um, and so some of them have to do with this myth of neutrality, that policing and political problems seem to fall under, where um, things like uh, race, ethnicity, um, other sorts of things on which inequality is built, um, uh, those things are often used uh, as proxies that index racial data in some way. So that's one thing she talks about. She talks about the difference or sort of the connection between eugenics of the 20th century and the way in which we short circuit our justice system these days. She sort of talks about the way in which we segregate our societies based on pre-existing categories and how digital systems just reproduce those segregations as opposed to mending them in some way. So she talks about policing, facial recognition, and then Amazon's hiring. So Amazon at one point, not now, but at one point used an automated tool that was found to discriminate against women. Um, and it was an automatic tool that was doing that because it was trained on Amazon's hiring data, which is, male dominated. And so um, even though the tool itself was automatic and, I guess, there's some sort of argument that um, digital technologies don't have prejudices or they behave objectively. A computer running code is um, without judgment or without, but we all know, or I think we'll come to learn that that's not true, right? The people that build these systems oftentimes embed their own prejudices into the systems, or they build the systems without knowledge that they will continue to replicate inequality because of the computational nature of it. So, like in the Amazon case, or in the case of policing being digitized and AI tools being much less um, uh, conducive to recognizing people of color or penalizing them unjustly, right? So that's what the first reading is about. And then the second reading, which is the this one right here. Where'd it go? Viral Justice. I should say that both of these are chapters out of books. This book, Viral Justice, we're reading the second chapter. I forget who the author of this is. But another reading that has to do with the ways in which digital processes have injected themselves into the justice system. And so if we think about this a little bit, we can see that, the author of this book is Ruha Benjamin. And so in this book, or in this chapter, really, she explores how policing and um, uh, other power structures are shaped by these, policing and other societal power structures like government and um, even private systems to some extent, like we've been talking about with Facebook and Amazon. They're all um, systemically flawed in some way that lead to um, sort of what Ruha James coins the deplorable game, or a predatory hunt that targets Black people, marginalized people, disabled people. And so in that, um, she describes policing as this ignoble offspring of slavery, which is maintained by myths um, of necessity. Like, we need this policing because things will fall apart otherwise. So there's financial, social costs to this. The author discusses how places like New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, billions are spent on settling these misconduct claims that are the result of failed computational policing. And so that's sort of the flavor, or the general uh, idea. There's another key idea in this text, which is viral justice, which is defined as a redistribution of resources from punishment into social goods and the creation of communities of care. So the author runs through a few examples of that. What was I going to say in regards to this? Um, oh, right. I was mentioned last week a little bit this idea, this company called Flock. Um, I'll put a link up to a couple YouTube videos. This is like a very recent manifestation of what we're talking about. I'm looking up there's a couple YouTube videos that I would really like for you to watch related to this, by a guy named Ben Jordan. Um, yeah, I'll find them and include links in this video's description on D2L. But at any rate, hopefully this gives you a little bit of grounding for this week's text. Just a reminder that you need to turn in a minimum of 8 of those written summaries, or whatever the equivalent of those written summaries um, is that we've discussed already. So with a few of you, I've discussed like a video format or some alternative reporting format that indicates that you've read the text and that you can put some serious work into reflecting on them. But that needs to be discussed with me beforehand, and only a couple people have done that. So I'm assuming that everyone will be writing these summaries for the rest of the semester. And just a reminder that you need to turn in 8 of them before the end of the semester. So, okay, I think that's it, and I'll talk to everybody on Thursday.